Hey guys, it's Friday, February 3rd. Everyone loves Friday. This is Newswave. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is this whole ZeniMax Oculus court case. It's still technically going on because now, even after winning $500 million in this case that ZeniMax has done, and of course it's probably going to get appealed, ZeniMax also wants to file an injunction to stop sales of Oculus Rift devices altogether. And when talking to the press, a ZeniMax spokesperson said, "We'll consider what further steps we need to take to ensure there will be no ongoing use of our misappropriated technology, including by seeking an injunction to restrain Oculus and Facebook from their ongoing use of computer code that the jury found infringed ZeniMax copyrights." And of course, this code that they are talking about formed the basis of the Oculus Rift software. So what does that mean exactly? That means that until Oculus fixes this code or changes it completely or somehow can win the court case so it's not affected anymore by it, they would have to stop production or at least sales of the Oculus Rift device. And this, of course, would really hurt the Oculus Rift because then they can't sell it anymore, so what's the point in making it? I think at this point ZeniMax is seeking something that they cannot get. I don't think that they would be able to stop Oculus sales. However, I can't guarantee that because who knows nowadays. But from there, John Carmack had something interesting to say in that regard. And if you know who John Carmack is, he's like this super smart mastermind right now that is working on VR with Oculus Rift. He was a big part of ID software, or id software if you want to call it that, back during the Doom times. He really created and helped form Doom. Rage was really popular. He helped with that as well. And ZeniMax is saying, hey, you took all types of files from us when you went over and started working with Oculus Rift on a USB stick, and that's how you guys formed Oculus, was based on our VR research. And of course, John Carmack says the one thing you have to say if you're still not proven guilty, he just says it's simply not true. And simply put, he says, the ZeniMax versus Oculus trial is over. I disagree with their characterization, misdirection, and selective omissions. So he just says that the trial, they just forgot to say a bunch of stuff that could have swayed the vote in their way. But keep in mind, this is probably going to get appealed. It'll go even deeper than this. And this is definitely not the last we've seen of this Oculus versus ZeniMax trial. And yesterday, Fire Emblem Heroes, the new free Fire Emblem game for the mobile devices, went ahead and launched without too much issue. There were a couple times where the servers were down, but it was not long at all. I think people were kind of blowing it out of proportion on the message boards. However, it did launch pretty much favorable to mid reviews. It was fine. It's a free game, so it's hard to review a free game because you're not paying any money for it outright. But definitely check back this weekend, as I think we will have a review up for you guys to check out if you're just curious. And recently, the spiritual successor to Mutant League Football, which was an older game that was on, it was during the 16-bit era, it was on the Sega Genesis. It looks like they're now seeking crowdfunding once again. A while ago, back 2013, they attempted to crowdfund for a large amount of money. It was $750,000, which they did not get. They came up well short, and they only raised $141,000 at that time. Well, now they've shown back up on Kickstarter with their spiritual successor, like I said, to Mutant League Football, which is just Mutant Football League, is how they name it now. And they're only looking for $60,000 at this time, and they actually have a playable demo. And you know what? I had some time to check it out, at least some of the different gameplay trailers and stuff for it. And you know what? It actually looks pretty funny. It kind of looks like Blitz. I don't know if you guys remember like Blitz for the like not the old Blitz, but the one that came out, Blitz the League, where it was more of a third person type view, and it's pretty violent. It looks just like that, except it just has monsters and everything. So it looks like it could be a really fun time, like arcadey. I don't know if it'd get very in depth, but it is supposed to be like over the top gore and violence. So it looks like it'd be a lot of fun, kind of mixed with that rough style football type game that has no rules. But yes, if you kickstart the game at this point for $1, you would have access to a pre-alpha demo build that you can play on your Windows PC. Now, they are looking to eventually launch it if they can get the rest of the money, and at that point, it would release on the Windows PC, Xbox One, PS4, and that would be early 2018. And Sony has now turned in their last year's numbers for just fiscal years and money made, and it turns out, yes, the PS4 is still a super hot selling console. In fact, as of December 2016, Sony has now shipped 57.1 million PS4 consoles. In fact, between October 1st and December 31st of 2016, Sony actually shipped 9.7 million units to bring their total up to that 57.1, which is a lot of systems to ship between 2-3 months at that point. Now, it's important to note those are numbers that are shipped to stores. Those are not necessarily numbers that are sold through to customers. And Sony was kind enough to give out that number as well, which comes to 53.4 million units actually sold through to customers, which is still a ridiculous amount. Sony's PS4 is right now pretty much above the PS2 pace, and I don't know if it's going to slow down because their exclusives this year look pretty good, and they're getting all the third-party support. So Microsoft, I think, at this point knows that they have lost the competition with the PS4 for the Xbox One. It's just going to come down to how much they lose by in terms of sales units. Honestly, at this point, with the way Microsoft's Xbox One sells, I would not be surprised, as I've said before, if the Switch does eventually pass it in its first 4 to 5 years. However, though, at the rate that these companies are releasing systems, at that point, there's probably going to be another Xbox something on the market. I don't even know what they'd call it. And we now have word that yet another Switch game is coming out. So this game called Trumbull Seed is going to show up on the Switch, and it's an interesting game. It's kind of like a top-down roguelike game. But the real interesting thing about this game is it's going to actually be what they call it, a flagship game for the HD Rumble. In fact, in a press release, the publisher for the game wrote, Trumbull Seed will make unique use of the Nintendo Switch HD Rumble, offering a unique sense of how fast and where the player is rolling in the world. The Nintendo Switch is the only game console available that can provide this experience, and Trumbull Seed aims to be the console's flagship title for HD Rumble. Trumbull Seed will also be available on Mac, PC, and PlayStation 4. However, at this point, because all consoles are going to provide the same graphical fidelity for this game, it's not a super powerful looking game in terms of graphics, the Switch probably will end up being the definitive edition just because it will use that newly found HD Rumble that other consoles don't have. You know, it's really cool to see companies actually thinking outside the box and using other features like HD Rumble to enhance their game. I really hope other companies in the future look at this HD Rumble. I still don't know what it feels like. I'm hoping to find out in February when that event happens in Washington, D.C., if I can get out there, but I'm glad companies are looking at this and saying, wow, there's stuff we can do other than just graphics, and we can actually do things with HD Rumble that could actually enhance experience for the gamer on the other side. This next bit of news is kind of odd, actually. So we all know this whole thing with Final Fantasy is going on with their big 30th anniversary, and really Square is not letting up. In fact, they are doing some unique stuff, and one of those things includes Final Fantasy XIV getting its own 60-minute escape room. And this escape room is actually titled Trials of Bahamut, and you're actually going to attempt to escape this room that's kind of themed through the Final Fantasy universe. You have 60 minutes just like any other one. There's 6 people in there with you solving puzzles in order to escape in one piece. Now, the official page has already gone up for this escape room. Doesn't really tell us much other than what I just told you now. However, they do at least give us the tour dates and where they're going to be. This does include places like LA, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Phoenix, Houston, Orlando, Chicago, and New York. Possible other places depending on how it does, and it's all tentative dates anyway. So if it turns out to be really popular, it might actually end up in other cities as well. You know, it's interesting to see Square really just, again, think outside of the box. You know, come up with other ways to push Final Fantasy out to other people who maybe they enjoy the escape room, but they don't know much about Final Fantasy. Well, they're actually going to enter a themed escape room. Who would have thought, by the way, all about Final Fantasy? And you know what? That's kind of neat. I wouldn't mind trying it. I still have not done an escape room, but I wouldn't mind trying it just to see how it does and see if it actually has some really cool, like, homage to Final Fantasy. And if you still have yet to pick up Last Guardian, 1, it's a pretty good game, but 2, it's actually getting a permanent price drop now. So instead of just being $60 like usual, it's actually going to get a $20 price drop now, and it's going to fall to $39.99. So you actually be able to pick up a pretty good game at a decent price. And that is a brand new copy, by the way. You won't have to pay, like, it's not like a used one. I'm sure the used one will be like $35, but $40 for a new game like The Last Guardian, that's pretty good, even though it's been in development forever. I assume the sales kind of have fallen off, and now they're just trying to cut prices to push the remaining copies out the door. Again, though, $40, not bad. Last Guardian should have been on sale by now as you're seeing this, so you could technically go out today and pick up a copy for $40. And the last bit of news today, guys, comes from the Nintendo president himself. In that same interview we talked about yesterday where he was talking about the online features and other things, he also mentioned what his expectations were for the Switch. Now, people seem to be kind of taking this whole thing, I think, the wrong way. For some reason, people are making fun of the idea that he has, which is that the system will do, in his mind, as well as what the Wii would do, where, remember, the Wii ended up selling over 100 million units, so now people are kind of making fun of him, saying, oh, he thinks that the Switch is going to sell 100 million units. Okay, guys, listen, this is how it works. If you're the president of a company, You have to show pure confidence in this new item that you're just putting an entire fortune of money into. Because when you're the president, not only are employees or coworkers up there with you on the board, or investors, or just the media in general, or the public, we're all looking at what he's going to say. Do you think he's going to come up there and say, well, I hope we can get past the Wii U numbers, because that would be awesome? No, those are 13 million units. They want to sell a lot more of the Switch. They want to at least do Xbox One numbers with the Switch. I think they want to do better than that, because honestly, I think they can. Do I think they can hit 100 million units? I think that'd be very difficult. Do they have the potential? I think any console at any time has the potential to do 100 million units. I think we saw that with the Wii. At the time, everyone was saying that Nintendo was dumb. They were out of it. They're going to be out of it after Wii because it's going to be their worst selling console yet. Turns out it was the Wii U. Who would have figured? But the Wii does over 100 million units, despite everyone saying no. I remember Michael Pachter, I remember watching a video of him back before the Wii came out. He said this was going to be Nintendo's nail in their coffin, and they were out after the Wii U of the console race, and he wasn't the only one, but man, were they all wrong. Even I was like, the Wii looks interesting. I still bought it day one, most like every other console that I get, but it still, you never know. Could it sell 100 million units? Sure. Any console technically has that chance because it can catch on to maybe a different audience that they didn't mean to catch on to. Do I think the PS4 will hit 100 million units? Probably at this point, yes, after their last financials came out. More than likely they will get there, but the Switch, I think, will have its own success, mostly because it does control that handheld market as well as get a foothold of some kind in the console market as well. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Let me know what you think down in the comments about all the stuff we talked about today, whether it's about this interesting Final Fantasy XIV escape room, or maybe you had some thoughts on the Switch with its sales that are supposed to be happening, hopefully, with how the president of Nintendo seems to think it's going to do as well as the Wii. Do you think it could do that well? Let me know. I'm very curious. Or what do you think about the ZeniMax and Oculus trials? Or what do you think about John Carmacks saying he didn't steal anything? They just came up with it on their own. Make sure you check out some of the videos this weekend, guys. Do a review on that Fire Emblem game and a couple other things. TechWave is coming this weekend as well. And with that, guys, I will see you next time.